disgusting, you will be shocked.
The war between Israel and Hamas. It's not a war between Israel and Hamas.
It is.
It's between Israel and the Palestinian people.
No, but it's not, though.
Thousands and thousands. So you agree with thousands of people, women and children, being killed?
No, I don't agree with 1,500 being killed on October the 7th.
Neither do I.
But I do agree. Let me explain what I do agree with.
Can I put something
Let me explain to you.
Can I put something to you?
Let me just clarify my position. It might be helpful. Because I've had lots of pro-Palestinian guests on this show, as you may or may not be aware.
And you've been very good on...
But I've tried to be very fair, but I've been consistent about my own opinion. I think after what Hamas did on October the 7th, it is utterly inconceivable that Hamas remain in power in Gaza. Inconceivable.
Okay, so basically now he is saying that Hamas is just like ISIS. Basically, this is how he portrays Hamas all the time. Hamas equals ISIS. Let's take a listen.
They are a terror group like ISIS, and they have to be eliminated. The question then becomes, how do you get rid of them? Now, my question for you is...
And then they have to be eliminated. Hamas must be eliminated. What they have done on October 7th. That's his logic.
Do you agree Hamas has to go?
Look, I don't support Hamas. I'm not a friend of Hamas. I don't agree.
You used to call them friends.
No, hang on.
We did.
No, Karen, let's get this clear.
We did say that you were friendly.
Piers, can you hang on a second? Let me just...
Is that not true?
Okay, so what happened 10 years ago? Jeremy Corbyn, he met a delegation from Palestine. From that delegation, there was a group from Hamas. And he wanted to have a peace talk with them, try to understand their situation, their point of views. And so he called them friend, Hamas friend. Hamas is in no way, shape or form is equal to ISIS, because ISIS did not have a Palestine like Hamas has. ISIS did not have a state. They had nothing. They just came from nowhere and they wanted to take over lands in Iraq and in Syria. On the other hand, you have Palestine. This is a country recognized by United Nations who have been deprived of basic human rights. And from them came Hamas. So the understanding of these two is very, very important here for us to differentiate between these two. Hamas, they do not capture foreigners and behead them like ISIS did, right? These two groups are completely different. Where they're coming from is completely different. But Piers Morgan, he's bent on proving to us that Hamas means ISIS, when these are two totally different entities. ISIS is a terrorist organization, no doubt about that. What they have done was horrendous, unbelievable. Hamas, their main goal is to liberate Palestine. They are not out there to kill innocent civilians. They're not out there. Well, they did on October 7th, but it came to this point where they had no choice. They had no help for a very long time. And we should always condemn the killing of innocent people. But my point here is that they were frustrated. They were not getting any help. They were living under this blockade for decades. They cannot have basic human rights. They cannot eat. They cannot go outside of Gaza. So again, I'm not saying what Hamas did was right. We should not allow this kind of killing of innocent people to happen. But what we have to understand, this is exactly what ISIS does. And if you take a look at Piers Morgan's statement and what he is saying about ISIS and Hamas makes absolutely no sense. And now on top of all of this, the reason he is putting Hamas at the same category of ISIS is because then he can justify the killing of Palestinians, the genocide taking place in Palestinian, and he can say, well, this is what you get when you have Hamas or ISIS inside Gaza. And at the same time, like, this is the main media, the mainstream media, they want to brainwash us into believing that ISIS is Hamas. We should not. There is absolutely no comparison between these two. And then Piers Morgan, what is so disgusting about him, he will say, what happened to the Palestinian is not right. Cutting off the electricity, water supply and all that is not right. Israel should not do this. In addition to this, he will also say, he had a guest. He said, we had a guest in this room from Palestine who was displaced in 1948. His family was displaced. Right now, he's living in refugee camps. And he was sitting right here with me, and he shared his experience with me. In other words, Piers Morgan, in this show, he will acknowledge what Israel is doing is much more heinous and genocidal than what Hamas did. Now let's take a listen, and you will see what he's saying from his own mouth.
Can I say something very clearly?
Yes.
Which I've said many times, and I said it on Andrew Marr 2 weeks ago. 10 years ago, I was in a private meeting in the House of Commons with a number of people who were representative of different Palestinian groups. It was an attempt to understand their views and to bring people together. For a short time, a person who was related to Hamas left the room. And I said, in a collegiate, a friendly and appropriate way, as you would at any meeting, where's our friend from Hamas gone?
Right.
That's all I said. And that...
So you called Hamas friends?
No. Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
Piers.
You just admitted
How
it.
many times have you sat in a meeting and called somebody a friend?
I wouldn't say my friends from the IRA.
And I don't know why that will be a problem. He's giving an example of IRA. Would I call IRA my friend? Again, there is no context, there is no comparison. If at that time, UK government, because this meeting happened in House of Commons, as Jeremy mentioned, if the UK government labeled Hamas as terrorist organization, why would they then allow Hamas to enter into UK and have a meeting with Jeremy Corbyn? So it is not really his fault. But IRA, you cannot invite them because they're up to no good. They're trying to destroy UK. So why would UK allow IRA? But at the same time, on the same note, why they would even allow Hamas if Hamas is a terrorist organization? So the setup was that Jeremy Corbyn, he understood these representatives from Palestine, they're legit. The UK government approved it, so they are coming to our country. They are already in our country in the House of Commons. And so I can call them friends because they're already cleared of security pass, because this is how they are in UK, right? So if I call them my friend, what's the big deal? But he is, Piers Morgan will say, no. If IRA was here, would you call them terrorists? No, IRA cannot be in UK, man, like Hamas. They cannot be in UK because they're killing British people and they're attacking like any other terrorist organization would do.
I wouldn't say my friend from ISIS. I wouldn't say my friend from Al-Qaeda.
So again, he is comparing Hamas with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, right? This is exactly what he's doing all the time. Unbelievable. So disgusting. I mean, he makes me sick to my stomach, wallahi.
You said my friend from Hamas. No, you might have changed, Jeremy, you might have changed your mind, which you're perfectly entitled to do.
Piers.
And my understanding is you do now regret what you said.
You are obsessed
Yeah,
with,
he
with
is.
tittle-tattle of politics.
Yeah.
Really?
Something that happens 10 years ago.
Crazy.
Why don't you instead concentrate
you think
on
people
this?
supporting
Hang on,
Hamas
let me
is
finish.
tittle-tattle?
Let me finish. Give me a chance.
Really?
Give me a chance. Let me finish. How do you think people in Palestine feel under occupation?
Yeah.
How do you think it's like, what it's like growing
I know
up?
how they feel.
Yeah, people under ISIS did not feel they were living under occupation, unlike what is happening in Palestine. This guy, like, he doesn't even have a brain. Like, he needs to grow some brain.
Growing up with a soldier outside your house.
I think.
How do you feel? How would you feel?
Well, can I
if
answer?
your land was being taken.
Can I
and a
answer?
settlement put in. How would you feel if your children were being bombed in a
Yeah.
hospital?
Can I answer?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a Palestinian doctor on here a few days ago who'd lost over.
So now he's talking about this Palestinian doctor who came to his show, and he's saying, horrible things happened to him by the Israelis, and he will go on to condemn Israel for what they did in Palestine recently with cutting off the supply of electricity and all that. And then he would not compare Israel and IDF to ISS, because this is what ISS is doing, exactly the same thing. They're killing innocent people. In fact, Israel, what IDF doing, they are much worse, because they're committing a genocide, guys, a genocide, and killing innocent people, bombing. Like, do you know the bomb they have dropped in Gaza has more firepower than the atomic bomb that US dropped in Hiroshima? Do you know that? You know, don't. So who is really worse? You are the one to decide. But don't put Hamas in the same category with ISIS, because the Western media, they are very, very successful in labeling ISIS as the worst, the most evil organization on earth. So anybody who would rise up for their own defense will be compared with who? ISIS. Because ISIS campaign, the PR campaign, was a big success. And so, you are rising up for your own defense and for your own rights. You're from Palestine, you are ISIS. This is exactly what they want you to believe. And this person is bent on proving ISIS is equal to Hamas. And he is at the same time, even though he's listen to him in a second, I'll play the video. Even though he's criticizing Israel for what they did, the genocide and all that, he's not willing to label Israel and IDF as terrorist organization.
30 members of his family, right? He grew up on the Jabili refugee
Yeah,
camp.
yeah.
His parents were displaced in 1948, and they ended up in the refugee camp, where he then lost 3 of his daughters were killed in an Israeli strike on a home he had finally got
Yeah,
for
happens
himself.
every day.
He then emigrated and has now been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He was in tears at this desk in
Yeah,
that
he
seat.
was.
So I don't need to be told. I've said
Piers, let me ask
that
you
the
another question.
way that Israel is able.
You do not need to be told, like, what did you understand from that person's perspective? What did you understand from that guy? That he was facing genocide. He was a victim of this terrorist organization called IDF.
even today.
But he's not gonna willing to call them terrorist organization. Oh, Hamas is terrorist. Hamas is ISIS.
To turn the tap on of water and energy and fuel into Gaza is wrong.
Yeah.
Palestinians should have the same human rights as people in Israel.
Exactly.
I'm unequivocal about
Absolutely.
that. But I'm also unequivocal in my head that Hamas has to go. And so the question for you, Len, and for you, Jeremy, but the question is, if Israel doesn't do it like they're doing it, how do they get rid of Hamas?
I'll just give you the answer.
Hamas started their operation, I believe, in 1980s. Even before that, the Israeli Zionists, they were killing Palestinians. Remember the Nakba? Remember all of this hassle and this displacement they brought on the Palestinian people from a very long time. Hamas is on the picture only recently, quite frankly, right? So who should go? Hamas? Okay, Hamas is gone. They're terrorists. Okay, they're bad people. They're gone. But then what about pre-Hamas situation with the Palestinian? Were they safe? Not at all. So every time somebody from Palestine will say, I want my rights, give me my rights, give me my land, give me a state, then they will create a new Hamas. This is exactly how they're doing it right now. Wallahi, that's unbelievable. This is unbelievable, guys.